Okay, good afternoon, everybody in the room and everybody online. I'm just going to put up a set of slides just to focus my mind there, and we'll be doing a kind of a combination of a few slides at the beginning just to kind of show you what kind of information you need to know as new staff, and then also we're going to go through some practical tips and tricks within Canvas itself. I'll probably just stay up here at the podium. I do have a clicker, but it's easier to just be up here for the minute. I suppose one thing just to do is welcome you all, especially any new staff. I know there's going to be some existing staff, maybe they're looking for a refresher as well. Today, I'm just going to introduce the team as well here. So this is a photo we took just yesterday. Unfortunately, Dara is missing from this actually in Tig, but we're a team of 12. We're based here in the Melbourne building. And anytime you want to pop over for training, it's usually on in here in the seminar room or online. I suppose in terms of the services that we offer, just to give you an idea, we're all about the mainstream services and supports here in MTU Cork. That would involve supporting Canvas and Zoom and all the integrated tools, and obviously the training that we'd be giving to staff and students to support you in using those technologies. But we also work on a lot of exploratory research and develop e-learning courses and work on European and national projects that have an e-learning focus on them or a digital learning focus. So I suppose that's just to show that in terms of what we do, our research, our exploratory research informs what we do in our mainstream support and services here in MTU. This session is a hybrid session, so there's people here in the room with me, and there's people online. Welcome everybody online as well. And I suppose if you want to learn any more about hybrid learning, there's a URL there. You can go on our site, or there's a link in the training as well. And I suppose just to outline what hybrid learning is, it's basically on-site and online activities happening in one session. So we're delivering out here online, but we're also addressing a face-to-face audience, and we connect those two audiences up then using technology. So in terms of our session today, we're just going to be covering I suppose the typical stuff that you cover for new staff and students coming into MTU and using our e-learning infrastructure. So we have the MTU TEL ecosystem, logging in and accessing modules, first steps for using Canvas, looking at the Canvas interface, setting up a module, uploading files and links and assignments in Canvas. And there'll be other stuff in between we'll cover as well. And if you have any questions along the way, we'll address those as well. Just to note, I suppose, for anyone that's new to a virtual learning environment, Canvas is our virtual learning environment. And just recently, actually, there was a tender that went out to procure our VLE for Kerry and Cork. So our Canvas VLE has been basically approved to be used for the next, I think it's 5 years in MTU. And I suppose that common link between Cork and Kerry as well, it means that there's a trust relationship between our two instances, and we can actually enroll staff and students across those two instances. The VLE would typically be used for sharing resources, receiving assessment files, communicating with students, but lots more as well. Let's take a drink. Okay, so Canvas, if you're not familiar with a VLE, has all the features that you typically see in a VLE. So they would be, I suppose, ease of use, a user interface that's pretty, simple to use for day-to-day teaching and learning tasks. Mobility, so there's an app that comes with it. I'll show you that in a sec. Learning analytics, so as the semester will progress, you'll actually be able to see the data that's generated from student interactions and be able to actually look at participations, and act on participations in Canvas. There's also integrated media, so you can record audio and video into Canvas, and you can obviously upload media as well. There's the speed grader, which is where all of your assignment grading and feedback will happen. And then there's the support element, and I'll touch on that in a minute as well. I suppose it's important to note that Canvas is not the only part of our e-learning infrastructure here in MTU. So we also have Zoom, which is really core to our live delivery. So Zoom will be used for online live lectures and to record those lectures. It would have been pretty essential when we had our emergency remote teaching period. Now it's obviously the use of it has lessened somewhat because we're all back to campus, but we obviously have our online programs and there'll be elements of group work, breakout sessions and stuff happening. So Zoom is integrated tightly to Canvas. We have anti-plagiarism software, so that's original. We have an e-learning authoring integration called H5P. So that allows you to create rich learning interactions within the Canvas system. Automated assessment, so there's a few integrations in different pockets of the university, and they're depending on the discipline you're talking about. So you'd have Lapster and Numbas. Lapster is a science-based kind of, basically for simulating labs. Numbas is a mathematics integration. There's learning analytics features within Canvas as well. And there's also a digital attendance tool called Quickly. And I think we'll be sending out some information on that at some stage shortly as well for anyone that's interested. What's useful, I think, from a staff and student point of view is you have two mobile apps for Android and iOS. They are the student and teacher app, and they just allow you to, I suppose they're useful for communication first and foremost, but from a student's perspective, they're quite useful just as a kind of a way of quickly checking on module communications and deadlines and so on. I find this graphic kind of useful here. It just looks at the e-learning infrastructure we have currently here in MTU in Cork. So it's divided into a few different quadrants. We have classroom management and tracking, asynchronous communication, collaboration, live classes, and content on demand. You can see Canvas right in the middle and all the features out here. Basically, mainly Canvas features, and they're all kind of pointing to integrations in on the outside, and then the peripheral applications that you might use to complement what you're doing in your day-to-day teaching and learning. But core to all of this is our Canvas system. Okay, so Canvas and Zoom are very tightly integrated for live online sessions. You have all of those other kind of features like Zoom Whiteboard, which will be covered in a session later this week, I believe, and assignments and so on, and screen sharing, and we can go through those in good time. Canvas Teacher is worth downloading as well, so that will give you those features, at a glance to kind of view your modules, communicate with students, things like I'm late for class, or if you're on campus, or maybe changing deadlines or changing different things on your smartphone. Good things to know. So let's just talk about Banner for a second. So if you're a new staff member, or even an existing staff member, all of your module enrollment information, so anything that you're teaching on or learning on as a student, basically comes from Banner. So Banner is a student information system. It's where all of that stuff is recorded, or where all the modules are created and all the enrollments are associated with those modules. So typically you have two roles. You have teacher, which is a lecturing role, and you have a student role. And when Banner, we've just gone through a Banner rollover. So the rollover script ran last Friday, I believe. And what that did is it created all the modules for semester 1, 2, and 3 in this academic year, and all the enrollments on those modules. So I guess when you go into Canvas initially, it can look quite unwieldy because you're going to see semester 1, semester 2, and semester 3 modules in your dashboard. But I'll show you how to maybe just to quickly tidy that up in a minute. If you ever have enrollment queries, so if you're not seeing a module in Canvas, if you're not seeing students showing up in your module, if you're not enrolled on the correct module, you need to contact web4faculty@mtu.ie. So that's the banner team basically that manage any of the enrollment data. And all of that data, I suppose banner is a single point of knowledge for enrollments and modules within the university. So that script, that kind of banner record updates every 24 hours. I think it actually updates twice a day. One of them maybe is midday and the next one is 3 a.m. or something like that. So I guess if you just count on it, you know, the records will be updated within 24 hours. That'll typically be reflected in Canvas. So I suppose if you get onto the banner office, it's just important to know that if they make a change, it won't be made immediately. It'll be made depending on when that refresh happens. So I suppose I can move into just a couple of the practical things and logging into Canvas there in a second. But I suppose another thing to maybe just cover is how you log into Canvas. So currently we're still using our CIT credentials, our staff credentials here. That's going to happen for a while because our IT systems haven't merged fully yet across MTU. So CIT credentials are still used. I think they're even used for WorkVivo, aren't they? And they're used for a few other systems. So I suppose eventually we'll all be using our MTU credentials, but for now it's your staff email is what you'll use to your staff email and password. That should be not staff ID and password, sorry. And then once you log in, you'll be logged in through IDP. Just on the Canvas support, this is maybe worth noting. So for any new staff, you mightn't be familiar, but there's 24/7 support with Tier 1. Typically, the best way of getting support from that service is via live web chat. The phone is the next best route, and then your email is the next route. But I would kind of go with web chat as a default because you tend to get someone pretty much straight away, or you're in a queue of maybe 3 or 5. And that's a good way of getting support. The one thing I would say is just try and have your information ready. The benefit of using web chat if you're in Canvas is that the module information is actually communicated to the Tier 1 support staff member, and that actually then helps them not to have ask questions like what module are in, what section of the module are in, and so on. Just to check on chat again, have we any other questions? So Sarah has one from Megan Cronin. So welcome, Megan, online. So for this semester coming, my modules are missing. Do I need to email them each semester? So no, I think you should just email them once. I suppose once they update the records, that'll actually update for semester 1, 2, and 3. So if you just get the records right in the first instance, they'll be able to kind of make that change and make it available across the 3 semesters. You know, I suppose there's always going to be some chopping and changing in terms of enrollments semester to semester. But I think once the record is set in banner, as in you kind of you know what modules and program you're delivering and so on, it tends to sort of cascade then across the other modules. So I wouldn't think you'd have to do it every semester, Megan. Okay. Any questions in the room here? No? Okay. Right. So I'm going to just come out of the share here for a second, and I'm just going to bring up Canvas if I can find it a sec. Okay. No. Actually, Dara, you know what the module name is for these sessions, don't you? Is it media to you? I just had to restart my machine there. TM Media or something. TEL underscore. I'm not getting that there now. Space. TLNM. Oh yeah, got it. Okay, sorry about that, online folks. Just bringing up a module that we use typically just to kind of demonstrate what we do in Canvas without having to start from scratch. So give me a second. Okay. Okay, so we're in Canvas now under this particular module. So this is our publish module. I suppose the first place to start is your dashboard. So when you're coming into Canvas, you'll see your dashboard. Currently, there's a communication that just came out actually from our department, our team around the rollover. So the rollover took place. What to do. So basically how to, there's a few how-to articles there in terms of just customizing your dashboard, and then also just looking at a few things like cross-listing, copying content from previous years, and a few Zoom things. So if you ever see kind of global announcements, as I call them, if there's anything really important that we need to share through the semester around Zoom or Canvas, it'll actually show up here in your dashboard. Now, if you want to get rid of it, you just exit, and you won't see that anymore then. So currently for this particular user, I only have one published module. If I go to modules and all modules, I'll see all the other enrollments. So this will vary depending on, you know, what you're enrolled against. So typically you're going to see your current enrollments show up here, your past enrollments and future enrollments, and to customize them in terms of what you see in your dashboard, you just need to star the items that you actually want to show up in this particular semester. So I'm just going to come out of that. This is already starred. This is a favorite module that I've selected. And if you follow the guide that I just showed you there, that's in the announcement, you'll be able to actually just filter out the modules that you want to see and you don't want to see. So that's just, you know, you're going to see semester 1, semester 2, and semester 3 modules currently. If you want to just remove all of the semester 2 and 3 modules, you star the ones in the current semester that you want. So just in terms of the user interface, you have your home menu up here on the left. You have your account, which typically you don't do much in the accounts area. You can maybe change notification settings, which is useful. So you know, you can change the types of notifications that you get. I'll just come out of this a second. Actually, I think Dara, because some of this stuff I think is just based on that other user. So if I go to notifications, yeah, you typically see email and push notifications. So push notifications relate to all of the stuff that you have coming to your smartphone or your mobile app, and email then is where you get email notifications. You can kind of just basically customize that based on whatever you want to see via email. I tend to maybe usually turn off some of this stuff. It gets very annoying via email. I think that's maybe one of the first tricks with Canvas. But once you get to your module or your modules, just to give you a view on what you see, you just see a typical menu here where you have your global menu on the left, which is your dashboard modules, calendar, inbox. So your inbox is where you get basically your inbox is like a webmail for your modules. Each module gets its own inbox and you get to communicate with your students via that. Your calendar is where anything like assignments and anything event-based is set up, and you can see all of those together. History is a useful one. It's like basically a history of the things that you've done, the actions that you've done in a particular you know, session or previous session, and you can kind of go back and check on those things. The commons on the global menu here then is where you can actually share content out to other users, either within the university in the Cork campus or the Kerry campus, or to other Canvas users as well. And that help menu is where you access the help I was talking about. So the tier 1 support is available in here, and also there's a number of guides and so on. You can submit tickets and so on in there. Let's check in chat again. Have we any other? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I can bring it up there. It will, yeah. Just very quickly there, Lisa. That's the circle I presume Lisa's talking about. Okay, I'll give you 5 seconds, Lisa. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, perfect. Okay, let's go over to just over to that module again. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to act as a teacher in this module, so we get a kind of an accurate view of it. Okay, so when you're in a module, so this is your global navigation here on the left. When you're in a module, you have kind of a module level menu. Now this, I suppose this menu and the content of modules are actually set by what we call a blueprint. So it's a template that's rolled out across the whole college basically, and that sets up the order of this menu. It also just changes a few settings in the module, so it's a lot easier for you as a lecturer or teaching staff. So when it comes to the menu, you've your home menu, which brings you to the home where you have recent announcements, and you have basically your weekly schedule in here. You also have the Zoom integration in here. So Zoom is integrated directly into Canvas. So if you ever want to run online sessions with your students, whoever is enrolled in a module, you can go to schedule a meeting, and the students will actually see that show up in their calendar. They'll get calendar notifications. Also, if they're logged into their Zoom meeting client, they'll actually get notifications via that if they have them configured. So Zoom will be covered in a session on Thursday. So we have 2 sessions on Thursday, I think. We have Zoom for new staff, I think, and we have new features in Zoom. So there's a few nice new features if anyone is interested there in terms of collaboration. But just for now, in terms of what Zoom does, you can, basically you can set up your classes in here. You can, once you record your sessions, they're available in cloud recordings, and any previous sessions are available in here that you might have set up. You also have reports. So if you had a report is based on the attendance in the class. So if you had people joining that live session, you'll see their join time and their leave time and duration and so on. So that might be useful for some. So Zoom, as I say, will be covered in a separate session, but just to say it's integrated into Canvas. If you're trying to log into Zoom, you can use your CIT credentials, and that'll actually bring you in. Also, I suppose if you go in through Canvas, it'll also authenticate you into Zoom. So it'll recognize that you have an account, and each staff member here gets a pro account with Zoom. We also have unlimited, pretty much unlimited cloud recording storage. So that means you don't have to worry about the length of recordings and so on. When it comes to the other menu items here, you have the units area. So the units area is basically where you organize all of your learning material. Typically, we'd maybe advise people to think of it in terms of a weekly, I suppose, a weekly containers, or to look at it in terms of organizing your stuff by week. Other staff we've seen maybe organize things by topic. Maybe they don't necessarily, maybe they have a topic that runs over 2 weeks, for example. They might just do a topic based rather than week based. But weeks are useful. You have weeks 1 to 13, for example, and students get a very clear view of what's happening where. The syllabus is quite useful from a student's point of view. So the syllabus actually auto-generates the stuff, based on Zoom recordings or Zoom scheduled sessions, assignments. Anything that's event-based will actually come up here in the module summary. So from a student's perspective, it's like a program of what's happening in their module. It's a time-based thing. Assignments, you basically set up your assignments in here. It's quite intuitive, really. If you go into assignment, you can create your assignment name, your assignment description, points value. So points value is, we'd usually say to put in a value of 100 here, because you can calculate percentages afterwards. So if you put in a point value in here, you can also put, you can change assignments to be in different groups. So it's like you might have assignments that have different weightings, and those groups can have different weightings, and they can be kind of calculated out then in the grade book. I'm not going to do a session obviously on assignments, but you know, there's a lot more on that we can do, and we'll probably do a future session specifically on assignments. But just to show in terms of the info. So sorry, now do we have another question in there? Oh, in Slido. Okay, so do my Zoom recordings get added automatically to Canvas? So whoever asked that question, yes, they do, but you must run your session from within Canvas. You schedule the session from Canvas. You can run the session from Canvas, and then the recordings are automatically available in Canvas. Back to this, the assignment details. So assignment typically has a title, a brief or a description. You can attach your brief in here as well, for example. And then the submission type, you have different options to display your grades. I usually kind of have a percentage display in here. And then in terms of submission types, you have a lot of different options. This really depends on what you're doing. So I would typically ask for a file upload, for example, but you can also ask students to submit media recordings, for example. So if you wanted them to submit a media recording, they'd be able to record a video of themselves or an audio clip of themselves and submit that. It could also be things like a website URL. In that case, it's possibly something they produced somewhere online, but just be careful with students that you have access to that URL. That's an important thing. Text entry as well, but I think by far the most common submission type is going to be an upload. So that could be any type of upload. Now you can restrict upload types. You can say, right, it can just be a PDF file or a doc or whatever. I tend to just, unless you need to be super prescriptive, and it's something discipline specific that you need to, maybe for example in architecture needs to be a CAD file or something like that, and that's the only file type, maybe then use it. But I think submission types may vary from student to student, especially if they're written. So they might give PDF, they might give a Word doc. But again, I suppose all of that stuff will be covered in your brief anyway. You can allow different submission attempts, so it can be unlimited or limited. Unlimited is useful because maybe students might make a mistake in their original submission. They're all time-stamped anyway, so you'll see if something is late or not. You have plagiarism review, so that allows you to check the work through original. You can set up a group assignment, so a group assignment with a group of students where they're submitting into that. It can be peer reviewed assignment as well. And then you have the assignment time information, so who it's assigned to. So typically everyone, but you may have modules where there are sections, and sections are usually created when you have modules that are merged together, like cross lists or maybe some other scenarios where you actually create sections for different groups, or just create different groups within your module. That's where you can kind of maybe just assign it to specific groups or sections. But then the due date's important, obviously, and the available from and available to times. And you can kind of change that and configure all of that depending on your use case. Quizzes, kind of basically another type of assessment. So quizzes are quite useful for either knowledge checks or just, you know, things to use either to complement your live sessions or things to use as asynchronous activities in between sessions. They can also obviously be used for kind of summative assessment, and quite a lot of that happened through the emergency remote teaching period. We have a lot of guides on that stuff on our site if anyone's interested in different quiz types and just the recommended parameters for those. And discussions are basically an area for creating threaded discussions in Canvas. It's okay as a tool. It's not my favorite in terms of format, but it can be quite useful, I guess, to promote discussion within a module, to be fair. And you can do quite interesting stuff, I suppose, with graded discussions where you might have a topic, a weekly topic, and you have everybody contribute and you maybe comment on each other's posts. The grades area, or the grade center, is basically where you'll get all of your submissions. So all of the assignments are represented by a column in here. All your submissions will typically be seen as a row, and you'll see all of your student names. These are test users, by the way, on the left, but you'll typically see your student number and name here. Your student's number and name, rather. You'll see whether it's been graded or not, and you'll be able to actually grade it, and whether it's late as well or not. By default, and again, we'll go into assignments and how to create them and manage them in another time, but by default, any grades you enter won't be posted out to students automatically. So there's a grade posting policy of basically don't post it until you've decided to post it out in mass. I think that's a safe option because you might want to do a lot of configuring there. You might be altering grades depending on the feedback, or you might be just doing it incrementally. So that, all of the action relating to grading your students will happen in here if you're giving them marks and feedback via Canvas. If I'm just to give an example here, I can click into a student. I can either just maybe at a glance give them a comment and a grade, but I can also obviously go in to the speed grader and view the assessment if they've submitted something, I'd be able to see it in here. I can add comments. I can do a lot of things, like I can attach maybe feedback in document form or some other form. I can actually record a video comment, or I can actually record a speech, an audio comment. And audio comments are quite useful actually if you want to get through assignments and give them pretty rich feedback without having to go through a lot of the pain of writing all the feedback. I tend to kind of maybe use both. I tend to write and maybe record some audio feedback as a kind of a general summary, and they're quite useful. Just go back in here and just have a look and see if we have any other questions. So we have a couple. So syllabus section, I don't enter anything here myself. It's auto-populated from events. That's correct, Lisa. So the syllabus is basically populated by anything, typically time-based. So it's an assignment, it's an upcoming scheduled Zoom session. Not sure if there's anything else. Would it be maybe something you've scheduled, like a group presentation or something like that via the calendar? Yeah, so Dara concurs with me there, Lisa. And thanks, Sarah, for posting a few of those. Another question from another slide is, how does the peer review through Canvas work? Can I test what it looks like from a student endpoint, or can I read up on how it works? I might ask Sarah to post maybe relevant articles in there, because that's quite specific and we need to get into maybe a few of the other things there, if that's okay, Lisa. But it's quite intuitive, and there's a lot of documentation either on our own site or on the Canvas guides on that. Okay, so just in terms of, I suppose that's our grade, our speed grader rather. And you can, if you're kind of working through your assignments, you can kind of toggle through them here, go through all of the students. On the top right here, you have these arrows and you can see, your student names, our student information. You'll see this eye icon with a cross across it, so that means that the grades are hidden, but you can actually post the grades that way. There's also another way to post them outside in the grade center as well. You can go back to the grade book at any stage or the grade center, and there are actions here that might be useful depending on how you want to arrange or filter students in here. You can actually export all your stuff as well out to spreadsheet format, if that's useful. There's a settings cog here as well in terms of the grade posting policy. So you'll see that it's manually posting grades as default. And again, just from experience here in the team, that's the safest option. So you're not just posting grades out partially, you're just posting out everything at the one time. So that's just going back up to the module. So that's the assignments area, the quizzes area, grade center. Announcements are a really, really simple way of communicating with your students. So in contrast with Inbox, which is like almost like a webmail for Canvas, announcements are like broadcasts. So these messages get sent out to basically to the people you want them to, but they're a nice, handy, quick way of broadcasting out something to your students. Now you can do a lot of things. You can record video announcements here as well through the rich content editor. I'll go through this in a second. But I'd use announcements quite a lot. My colleagues do as well. It's a great way to say what's coming up, if there's a change in schedule, if there's anything that's really important to broadcast out to your students. That's a great tool, as opposed to Inbox, which is usually quite individual. You're maybe contacting individual students or groups, and you need a bit more control in there. So your topic title is your announcement title. The rich content editor is this area here. So this is very familiar, I suppose, to anyone that uses a word processor like Word or Google Docs or whatever. Has the same types of features, your text editing features, your bold, italics, underline, and so on. But then you also get features to kind of add media. So you can upload or record media. So I can upload or record a video announcement, for example. I can also bring in module media or other media. I can add images, module images, user images. You can embed YouTube videos. So maybe that's something you want to append to an announcement based on a subject that you're covering. H5P content, again, is quite specialized, but H5P is a HTML5 authoring tool. So it allows you to create nice e-learning interactions, which are a bit above and beyond what you just do with quizzes and assignments. It allows you to create kind of rich interactions, things like drag and drops and multiple choice questions and things that just are a bit more media rich and interactive. And if you're interested in that, there's a lot on our site as well about H5P. There's other integrations available in there as well through that plug icon, if they are there at all. And then you have other settings in there regarding kind of special characters, equations, and things like that. Another question just coming in, 2 questions actually, sorry. Is there a Canvas beginner's guide or quick step guide that we can access? There is, I believe. Maybe Dara, I might ask you to point out where that is on our site.
So I would say the easiest beginner's guide is you go to TL, that's the and basically it's just a Canvas Learn course, which is not an course that kind of walks through all elements of Canvas. So if you were to go into the digital teaching area and into the Canvas at the heart of and there's a link there to Canvas Learn, and that really is the best resource in terms of getting set up for Canvas.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so there's actually a lot of stuff on our site, but there's as Dara was saying there is this Canvas Learn module that's available for staff and available for students. So there's 2 different courses. One is focused on staff, obviously. One is focused on students. All students are automatically enrolled in that module, and all staff are enrolled on this other one, and they're actually updated and are thematically linked to our training sessions and things like that. So that's definitely, thanks Dara, that's one worth looking at. There's also a lot of maybe other things you'll find in here, like student assessment guide using Canvas for online learning. From a student's perspective, you'll find a lot of stuff in here. And again, the Canvas Learn module is there. You have a student knowledge base. So the student knowledge base, we have 2 knowledge bases. You as a staff member would be using the staff one, which is available in our support section, but students get a very similar version. And that actually covers things like top articles, Zoom for Students, and a lot of stuff to get them started. So I think those 3 things: you have Canvas Learn for students, you have the help docs or the knowledge base, and you then have those guides as well on our site to help. And thanks, Sarah, there for posting those as well. Is there somewhere where I can request students to choose time slots for weekly one-to-one lessons? Would that be done through assignments or calendar? So you can do that through the calendar. Again, I might ask Sarah to post the relevant guide link to that there, but there's a calendar. You can basically create calendar bookings using the scheduler in the calendar, and that'll allow you to split a day into a number of sessions, you know, based on what you want them to be, quarter of an hour, half an hour sessions, and your students then can actually book in on those, and you'll get a view on that. So it's like a doodle poll for Canvas. From YouTube, if I see the line through the eye, I can see it, but the students can't. Is that correct? Yeah, that's bang on. So if by default, students won't be able to see feedback or grades until you actually physically go in and post the grades to the group. Okay, great, good questions there, everybody. Let's just go back. So announcements. I think this is pretty self-explanatory, to be honest. The announcements. So you have a really useful feature here called delay posting. So delay posting allows you to post at a particular time and date. So I know Dara uses this quite a lot, and this is quite clever. If you've done it previously, if you've ran a module, you know, and you've gone to the trouble of sending out announcements about different things like, you know, maybe useful things, useful interventions, useful tips and tricks, or things that you're going to say to your students to kind of keep them engaged. You can actually, you know, delay those posts. You can, if you looked at last year's ones, you could kind of just basically copy them over and you can reschedule them, or you can start from scratch and you can post at particular times and dates. And that just makes you super efficient. You know, it's a nice productivity tool. So you don't have to go to the trouble of doing it manually each time. You can kind of delay your posting, schedule your postings to certain dates and times. And as you'll be discovering through some of our other sessions, there's useful times to do this, you know, certain things in the semester. So, you know, in week 6, for example, it's a really useful time to look at the analytics and the data that's generated from what you've done. It's kind of halfway through the semester, and typically then maybe there's other communications that can go out that can help students along that period. But also, you know, when they're coming in, there's useful things and things you might want to say to them. You can allow users to comment on the post, which I don't know, I don't have any view on that. I think it's good if you want to have that feedback loop. You can enable a podcast feed, and you can also allow liking. So liking is basically like social media liking. You have the Quickly tool here as well. So Quickly is an attendance tool. So Quickly is an integration into Canvas. It might ask you, like it is here, to authorize the app in the first instance. But once that's done, you'd be able to begin kind of attendance sessions where students check in. And typically this maybe is more relevant to physical spaces and classes where you want the students in your space to use their phone and to use a code and to check in. So useful, I suppose, for when you do need that data, when you want to have that attendance data. And, you know, I know there's courses that are linked to regulatory bodies and things like that that need that pretty much on rails. So that's important. So Quickly, again, is something we'll cover in a separate session, and that just basically is a way of taking digital attendance. The chat feature is basically like a web chat that you can set up. You know, I suppose this was very useful again when we were in the emergency period and we're looking at ways to support assessments and things like that. You might have a scenario where we might want to use that as well. It's just basically a module chat, and you can set it up as a way to chat with your students through a web chat. But to be honest, if I was doing this type of thing, I'd probably set up a Zoom session and, you know, do more advanced things like breakout sessions and use the video and audio. Files is an area where you see all the files that you're uploaded. This is typically hidden, and it's hidden for a reason. There's a, you know, that's a default option, and I wouldn't be changing it. People is also hidden for obvious reasons. You don't want to be able to see, or students shouldn't see other student information. And then the other ones that are hidden there: pages, outcomes, collaborations, rubrics. So rubrics, once you actually add information into rubrics, could actually show up. Then you have your settings area. So settings in your module settings just allow you at a glance to see, things like your start and end date for the module. Obviously, this is past because this is just a test module, but you typically see a start date of the start of September and end date of June or something like that. Or sorry, for this semester it would be December, January, and January then for your semester 2. There's a few useful links in here, so you can set up a module to be self-enroll. So this is useful if you want to set your module so that if you ever have issues with late enrollments or anything, that you could actually set up this kind of a temporary link. It's also used for maybe non-standard modules or CPD courses where you want people to enroll that are typically not linked in with Banner to these modules. All the other stuff here is just maybe worth noting. Sections typically relate to cross-listed modules, and cross-listed modules you can find out more about online, but on our site. But very basic explanation is that if you have a number of modules you want to deliver to one group as opposed to 2 or 3 groups, you can merge those modules as a cross list, and then the cross list, I suppose the constituent parts are named as sections, so you can see module 1, 2, 3 of the cross list appear in there. Navigation is where you can kind of customize the appearance of your menu that's here on the left. Apps, you won't see much in there really. I suppose it's worth noting that the only external apps that we have integrated with Canvas are Zoom, Numbers, Labster, Quickly. There's possibly another couple I'm mentioning, but there's a whole process in terms of security and data protection and so on that they need to go through before they ever get considered or integrated. There's other feature options, and there's another integrations button there. I'm not sure what that does. And then you have module statistics and so on. So that's it at a glance. I'm not sure, is there anything you want covered here in the room? Is there anything that I'm not covering? I don't want to be keeping people too.
List of options on the left-hand side. How
Okay.
can I add it?
So Ruth is asking, how can I add Zoom? So Zoom will actually be in there by default because it's pushed out via a blueprint. But if there was ever an instance where you weren't able to see that link, you can actually access it in your settings. So where I was just showing there, actually just stop acting there. If I go into my settings, if I go to navigation, basically if Zoom wasn't available, it would be showing up down here in the disabled items. So you could just, let's just say it was down there. I could drag it up there. And Zoom, as I say, Zoom is integrated into Canvas by default. But it's important to use your CIT credentials. That's how you get provisioned an account with Zoom, the Pro account, and you can use all of the features that are kind of available. Let me see. YouTube question: what is rubrics? So a rubric is basically an assessment matrix, an assessment tool you can use for assignments. So if you want to kind of have a way of giving students a very prescriptive breakdown of the criteria and achievement grades and descriptors for each of those achievement grades, you can do so via a rubric. Again, a rubric is quite a specific topic to cover, but once you set one up, it can be used then as a reference for the students, but it can also, more importantly, be used by you as a quick tool that allows you to add grades for each descriptor that you have for your assignment. So think of it as a matrix of the criteria that you're assessing an assessment with achievement bands and different descriptors for those achievement bands. And when you're then grading an assignment, it's a really quick way of adding grades and feedback for your students, apart from the feedback that you're recording through the media tool or the audio tool and so on. Now there are links here called Find Outcome. We don't use outcomes here in MTU. We don't link learning outcomes to module descriptors and so on like that. There isn't that kind of there isn't that level of connection between the different systems here. What you typically be doing is you'd be setting up the criteria here yourself, the marks and so on, and the descriptors in there. So look, there's definitely more. Maybe Sarah, again, you might post something on rubrics from the Canvas guides for that person there. But we're just over 54 minutes. I might just wrap up if that's okay, but I just maybe wrap up on a couple of finishing points there. So I guess just a few things for yourselves. You have the TEL site, which is a really useful kind of a one-stop shop for resources for downloads and things like that. That's the telcit.ie. You have support guides. This is probably one of the most important places I'd send you to, really, is this link here. Sorry, my screen is a bit full here. So if I send you, or it's available anyway through our site, but you have self-support guided support, which takes you to our help articles, but there's also guided support, which is our help desk. So if you email edtech@mtu.ie, you'll get basically log a ticket with us, and a member of our team that you saw there at the start in that photograph will actually be back to you. Typically within a few hours and within the day. Obviously, we're going through a kind of a peak period these weeks with everybody putting in cross-listing requests and so on, but we'll get to you as soon as we can. But in the meantime, check out the self-guided support. If you can, if you can find an answer in here, there's a useful kind of a smart knowledge base, if you put it that way. It has, if you put in something around cross-listing, for example, it'll bring up the relevant articles. And you can kind of get to the information as you need it. Sometimes you can get to the support before before we'll be able to answer you, for example. So that's worth looking in on. The other place is our YouTube channel. So that's our YouTube channel. If you just search for Technology Enhanced Learning MTU, I know it's a mouthful, you can find us there, and there's a whole back catalogue of recordings, including the one from today will be actually available there shortly, if you want to kind of go back on it. There's also the Canvas Learn module. So that's a screenshot of it there. You should all see that in your module dashboard in Canvas. That's a good course to take. It's a course we've developed, and we kind of update that based on anything that changes in Canvas. So I'd work through that, and obviously with your students, you can advise them as well that there's a student version available for them. Thanks, Sarah, for putting all those in. I think we have no more questions, but that said, if anyone is viewing the recording, or if anyone wants to ask any questions after we're finished here, you can still post them into that Slido link, and we can basically answer them there in a non-live fashion. So and thanks to Dara there for going through the Q&A as well, and for Sarah for supporting our online learners, and for all of our face-to-face attendees here as well today. Thanks very much for attending. So that's our first hybrid session for this week. We have a number of other sessions happening the next 2 weeks. So if I go into, just to show you here where that is, there's a breakdown of those sessions happening here. So they're by theme. You have getting started with teaching and learning, or digital teaching, which is for new staff typically, but still relevant to any other staff member, really, if you're looking for a refresher. And then there's kind of refresher content. So we've done the session on Canvas for new staff, but that'll be repeated again as well. There's Zoom for new staff next week. and Zoom for new staff takes place the week after as well. And you typically have everything repeated, and everything takes place either at 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock on a Tuesday, or 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock on a Thursday. So hopefully you get enough opportunities there. You can add those events to your calendar, so you get a reminder. So that downloads what's called an ICS file, and you can download that, add it to Outlook, and that'll just remind you of the session coming up. And I maybe advise you to do that. That's handy because we all forget about these things. You're also very welcome to come to the hybrid events here in the seminar room if you ever want, to meet face to face. And I think that's it. So look, I might just say thanks very much, everybody, and we'll talk to you all again soon. Hopefully, you're welcome to all of the future sessions happening. All right, thanks a million. Cheers, and welcome to MTU for any of the new staff members.